The smell of coffee filled the kitchen as sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the delicate lace curtains that Hannah had picked out years ago. She stood at the counter, stirring a spoon absent-mindedly in her mug across the table. Alex, her husband of 10 years, was flipping through his tablet, his brow furrowed as he skimmed the morning news. Their daughter Sophie sat between them, her chatter about an upcoming school project bouncing off the walls. It was a scene of domestic tranquility. Yet, to Hannah, it felt like a fragile performance. She glanced at Alex. His face was familiar, comforting in its predictability, but something was missing somewhere between the mortgage payments, carpool schedules, and the monotony of daily life they had lost. Each other conversations had become transactional, lists, schedules, reminders. When was the last time they had laughed together? She couldn't recall. Hannah, did you hear me? Alex's voice broke through her thoughts. Sorry, what? She asked, blinking. I said, can you pick up Sophia today? I've got a meeting that might run late. Oh yeah, sure, she replied, quickly avoiding his eyes. He nodded and went back to his tablet. Sophie tugged at Hannah's sleeve, asking for help with her cereal as Hannah poured the milk. She felt a pang of guilt. It wasn't that Alex was a bad husband. He was steady, reliably, and kind, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental was missing. She felt unseen, like a shadow moving through her own life that afternoon. As scrolled through old photos on her phone, her finger hovered over one in particular. It was from high school, a blurry shot of her and Daniel at Abendfire, his arms slung around her shoulders, both of them laughing. Her chest tightened. She hadn't thought about in years, yet here he was resurfacing like a ghost. She shook her head and closed the photo app, but the memories lingered. She told herself it was nothing, just a fleeting moment of nostalgia, but deep down she knew better. The next few days passed in a haze, but the thought of Daniel refused to leave her every time she picked up her phone. Her fingers itched to search for him. Finally, one restless night, she gave an opening Facebook. She typed his name into the search bar. His profile popped up instantly. He looked different, of course, but his warm smile was the same. He was living just a couple of towns away. Her heart raced as she scrolled through his photos. He was single, his posts peppered with references to a recent divorce. She felt a twinge of something, sympathy, longing. Wasn't sure. The next morning she received a friend request. It was from Daniel. Hannah stared at her phone, her stomach doing somersaults. Had he noticed? Edged looked at his profile. The idea was mortifying, but the curiosity was stronger. She accepted the request, and within minutes, a message appeared. Daniel, Hannah, is it really you? Her hands trembled as she typed a response. Hannah, hits me. How long has it been? The messages came quickly after that, a flood of reminiscences and updates. Harry remembered everything. Their first kiss, the county fair, the way she used to doodle in her notebook, the songs they'd listened to on endless car rides. She felt herself smiling, laughing, even as they exchanged memories for the first time in years. She felt alive. The massages became a daily ritual. At first they were harmless, a few lines here and there, but soon they grew longer, more personal. Daniel confessed how much he had missed her, how he often wondered what could have been his words. Struck a chord deep within her, echoing thought she hadn't dared to voice one evening. Ask folded laundry. Her phone buzzed with a new message. Daniel, would you want to grab coffee sometime? I'd love to catch up in person. Hannah stared at the screen, mind racing. She knew what she should have said: no. Cut off contact before it went too far. But instead she found herself typing, Hannah, I'd like that. The next morning, she told Alex she had plans with an old friend. He didn't ask questions, merely nodded as he sipped his coffee. Guilt twisted in her gut, but she pushed it aside. When she arrived at the cafe, her heart pounded in her chest. Daniel was already there, sitting at a corner table, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. As she approached, he stood and pulled her into a hug. The warmth of his arms brought back a flood of memory sand. For a moment she felt like the carefree teenager she used to be. Their conversation flowed effortlessly. Although no time had passed, Daniel told her about his job, his divorce, And the challenges of starting over, she opened up about her life with Alex careful skirting around the cracks in her marriage. You always had this way, Abutu, Daniel said, his voice soft, like you could light up a room without venturing. She blushed, unsure how to respond. No one had spoken to her like that in years. As they left the cafe, Daniel walked her to her car. There was a moment of hesitation before he said, I'd love to see you again if that's okay. Hannah nodded, unable to find the words to refuse driving home. Her thoughts were all whirlwind of emotions. She told herself it was innocent, just two old friends reconnecting, but deep down she knew it was more than that. The second meeting came quickly, then a third. With each encounter, their conversations grew deeper, their connection stronger. They began sharing things they couldn't, with Anyan L's dreams, regrets, fears, own evening. As they sat on a park bench watching the sunset, Daniel reached for her hand. I never stopped loving you, Hannah, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Her breath caught in her throat. Knew she should pull away, but instead she let her fingers intertwine with his. In that moment all the walls had built around her heart came crumbling down. When she returned home that night, Alex was waiting. You've been distant lately, he said, his icy irking hers. Is something going on? Nash replied, quickly, too quickly. The light tasted bitter on her tongue. But she couldn't stop now. She told herself she could keep the two worlds separate. Butch was already standing on the edge of a precipice, and she knew it was only a matter of time before she fell. Hannah's life became a precarious balancing act. Day. She was the devoted wife and mother, navigating Sophie's school runs and Alex's work deadlines by night. She was consumed by Daniel's texts and the secret world they had created. The thrill of it all was intoxicating, but the guilt was relentless, creeping into her thoughts at every quiet moment. Her phone had become a lifeline to Daniel. Late night texts turned into phone calls, his voice like a balm to her restless mind. When she wasn't with him, she replayed their conversations in her head. She would stand in the kitchen staring at casserole she was supposed to been making while the echo of his laugh filled her ears. Alex would come home exhausted from work and find her distracted. He'd kiss her cheek, a gesture a thought once made her heart flutter, but now it felt like an afterthought. You've been quiet lately, Alex said. One evening as they sat on the couch, the TV played a show. They both stopped paying attention. Just tired, she replied, offering a weak smile. He nodded, accepting her excuse. She hated how easy it was to fool him, how he never pressed too hard. Part of her wished he'd see through her lies and force her to confront the chaos she was creating. Beth trusted her, and that trust made her decide cut even deeper. Her meetings with Janelle became more frequent. They explored hidden corners of their town Aquia bookstore, where they could sight and noticed a hiking trail far from Priengus, a diner on the outskirts of the city, where no one knew their names. Each encounter felt like stepping into a bubble, a world where responsibilities and consequences didn't exist, but as much as she tried to compartmentalize, cracks were beginning to form. Alex wasn't blind. He noticed the way Hannah's phone rarely left her stealthy way she smiled at messages she claimed were from an old college friend. Noticed the way she avoided his touch, her once natural affection, now stiff and mechanical. He told himself it was just a fuse, that they were both busy and tired, but the doubts lingered, nagging at the edges of his midnight night. As Hannah showered, Alex's curiosity got the better of him. Her phone sat on the nightstand, its screen lighting up with notification. He glanced at it intendingly to see if it was something important, but what he saw stopped him. Daniel can't stop thinking. Abutu, when can I see you again? The words might as well have been a slap across his face. His chest tightened as Hess scrolled through the messages, each one a dagger. There was no mistaking the tenethy intimacy. His stomach churned with a mix of fury and heartbreak. When Hannah emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, she found Alex sitting on the edge of the bed, her phone in his hand. What hell is this? He demanded, his voice trembling with anger. her heart plummeted. Froze the towel, slipping slightly, asked. Daniel, her mind raced, searching for an explanation, a way to downplay what he had found. But the look in his eyes told her it was too late. Henu. I didn't mean for it to happen, Hannah, stammered, tears welling up in her eyes. It just happened. Alex lied bitterly, running a hand through his hair. It just happened. That's your excuse. How long, Hannah? How long have you been sneaking around behind my back? A few months, she admitted, her voice Beryl Yabov, a whisper. He let out a sharp breath, pacing the room like a kajada nomal. Do you love him? The question hither like a punch to the gut. Did she love Daniel? Or did she love the way he made her feel, alive, wanted, free? She didn't know how to answer. Her silence was all Alex needed. I can't believe this, he muttered, his voice breaking. We've built a life together, Hannah. We have a daughter. And this is how you repay me. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, tears streaming down her face. I was lost, Alexei. Felt invisible. He shot back. You think I don't feel the same way? Sometimes you think this marriage has been easy for me. But I stayed. Hannah is stayed because I love you, because I love her family and you. He trailed off, shaking his head in disbelief. The days that followed were a blur of cold silences and tense exchanges. Alex refused to sleep in their bed, retreating to the couch each night. Sophie said change, asking why Daddy wasn't around. As much Hannah tried to shield her daughter from the truth, but through it of her actions hung heavy in Theor. Daniel called and texted, but Shekel didn't bring herself to respond. That thrill she once felt when his name mapped on her screen was gone, replaced by an overwhelming sense of shame. She had wanted freedom, excitement, a reminder of the person she used to be. But now all she felt was emptiness. She had hurt that two men she cared about most, and she had no idea how to make it right. One evening Glex finally spoke. Do you even want to fix this? He asked, his tone flat. I don't now. She admitted, the honesty cutting like a knife. Well, figure it out, he said. Beckus. I can't keep doing this, Hannah knew. She couldn't avoid the decision any longer. Daniel was a ghost from her pasta, reminder of who she used to be. Alex was her present, her stability, the father of her child. But could she ever repair damage she had done? Did she even deserve to? As she sat alone in the house, Sophie asleep upstairs and Alex out for a walk, she finally let her break. The tears came in waves. As she faced the truth she had been running from. There was no going back to the way things were. But maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward. The following day, Hannah finally picked up Daniel's call. She had ignored him. 4 weeks torn between the lingering warmth of their shared moments and the reality crashing down around her. But this call wasn't about reigniting what they had. It was about closure. Hannah. Daniel's voice was soft, almost relieved. I've been worried about you. Are you okay? No, honestly, her voice trembling. I'm not okay. None of this is okay. There was a long pause on the line, the weight of her words hanging between them. I never wanted to hurt you, she continued. But this was a mistake. Daniel's silence was deafening. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with resignation. So, that's it. After everything, you're walking away. I don't know what I thought would happen. Daniel, she admitted, her throat tightening. But I can't keep running for my life. I can't destroy my family for something that feels more like a dream than reality. It wasn't a dream to me, he said, his voice cracking. But if that's what you need to do, I won't stop. You hanging up was the hardest thing she'd done since the affair began. But it also brought a sense of relief. For the first time in months, she felt the faintest glimmer of clarity. She had made her choice. Now she had to face the consequences with Daniel out of the picture. Hannah turned her focus to Alex. But if she thought ending the affair make things easier, she was wrong. The distance between them felt insurmountable. Every conversation was laced with tension, every glance filled with unspoken accusations. One evening after Sophie was in bed, Hannah found Alex sitting in the living room, staring at an untouched glass of whiskey. She sat down across from him, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. I ended it, she said quietly. He looked up, his expression unreal. Good for you, he said, his tone bitter. What do you want me to do with that information? Hannah, forget everything and pretend we're fine. No, she said, her voice breaking. I don't expect that. I need you to know that I went to fix this. I want to fix us. Alex let out a bitter laugh. Fix us? You think that's possible? He shattered my You broke us. Tears streamed down her face. I know I did, and I don't know if I can fix it. But I'm willing to try if you are. He stared at her for what felt like an eternity before finally speaking. I don't know if I can forgive you, he admitted, but I can't make that decision right now. I need time. It wasn't the answer she wanted, but it was better than nothing. She nodded, grateful for an sliver of hope. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of Hannah's life. She threw herself into rebuilding her marriage, attending therapy sessions with Alex, and making an effort to be present with Sophie. But no matter how hard she tried, the specter of betrayal loomed over them. One afternoon, during a particularly grueling therapy session, their counselor asked a question that left Hannah reeling. What made you feel like you couldn't turn to Alex? Before the affair began, the room fell silent as Hannah struggled to find words. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I felt invisible, like I didn't matter anymore. Alex looked at her, his expression softening for the first time in weeks. You always matter, Donna, he said quietly. I'm sorry if I didn't show it, but that doesn't excuse what you did. I know, she replied, her voice trembling, but I want to matter to you again. I want to be the person you turn to, not the person you resent. For the first time, she saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. Rebuilding their relationship was a slow and painful process. Trust wasn't something that could be restored overnight, and Alex made it clear that he wasn't ready to fully let his guard down. But he was trying, and for that Hannah was grateful. They began carving out time for each other's simple things, like taking walks together or sharing coffee in the mornings. It wasn't perfect, but it was a step toward rediscovering the bond they had lost. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Alex turned to her and said, I want to believe in Usagan, Hannah, but you have to promise me no more lies, no more secrets. I promise, Esh, said her voice firm. I'm done running. For the first time in months, she felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was real. And that was months passed, and slowly life began to feel normal again, or as close to normal as it could. Therapy sessions became less frequent, and the tension between Hannah and Alex began to ease. Weren't the same people they had been before the affair, but in some ways that was a good thing. They had been forced to confront their flaws, their fears, and their vulnerabilities, and that brought them closer in ways they never expected. Hannah still thought about Daniel from time to time, but that pang of longing had faded. She realized now that what she had felt for him wasn't love, it was a yearning for a version of herself she thought she had lost, but that version of herself wasn't gone. She was still there, waiting to bury not through someone else, a bit through her own strength and determination. One evening, as the family sat around the dinner table, Sophie told a joke that had them all laughing until their sides hurt. Hannah looked at Alex's face, lit up with genuine joy, and felt a wave of gratitude. They had been through hell, but they had come out stronger on the other side. Life wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and for the first time in a long time, that was enough. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. You can check out our other videos to enjoy more stories from us. See you later. Take care. God bless you.